and we caught some giant rogue sideways wave, or a couple of them, and it popped the tops. Basically, the whole top of the front end of the boat popped up like a Tupperware lid and dipped into the water and gulped in as much water as it could possibly eat.
Welcome back to When It Hits the Fan, the podcast where we speak with the world's most intrepid explorers about what really happens when things go wrong. Brought to you by Battleface Travel Insurance. Now, amongst the many formidable challenges that can face explorers and adventurers, the sheer vastness and unpredictability of the ocean makes it a particularly perilous environment. But our guest today has devoted himself to uncovering the secrets that exist hidden on the ocean floor. Tim Taylor is an ocean explorer, underwater robotics expert, founder and CEO of Tiburon Subsea, and has, over the past 30 years, become one of the most renowned experts on marine technology and deep sea exploration. Perhaps one of the most important projects he's been involved with is the Lost 52, which aims to locate and survey US World War II submarines, and of course their crews, which have lain undiscovered for decades. So far, the project has discovered 7 of these lost subs, bringing closure to the families of these sailors and providing a vital historical record of what happened to the vessels. In fact, in news that has only just gone public, Tim has recently been bestowed the Distinguished Public Service Award, the US Navy's highest civilian honor, for his work with the Lost 52 project. As you can probably assume, we've been really looking forward to having a chat with Tim, so let's get straight into it. Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
And I should start off by saying congratulations for this award, as I understand it, the highest civilian honor that you've been bestowed by the US Navy.
Yes, we're quite honored. Me and the whole team are, for our work that we've done, and it's nice to be recognized.
Did you have any idea that you would receive this award? Were there rumors beforehand, or it was completely out of the blue?
Well, that wasn't completely out of the blue, because one of my mentors, one of my advisory board members, Don Walsh, who is famous for 1960 going to the bottom of the ocean with Jacques Piccard. So Don had won it in 2010, and he wrote a letter to the Navy to put me up for it and let me know that. So I didn't know if it would happen. And you don't sit here and wait for these things to show up at your door. But he was kind enough to nominate me. He thought our work was exemplary. So I'm honored that he's one of the guys that spearheaded this. So.
And has it been quite difficult sort of keeping it under wraps until it was actually able to be announced?
Yeah, well, we, in times of COVID, we received it in the mail, and pretty much, we're sitting on it, and we're announcing it soon, and you'll be one of the first to probably air it. But in the old days, it might have been a little bit more of a fanfare and an event, but today it isn't. So it's a great honor.
Absolutely, yeah. So as far as I know, then the incident you're going to talk about today happened when you were leaving Havana on a vessel. Is that right? Have I got the geographic location correct?
In my career, before I sold my research vessel to the Navy, I did a lot of work in the Caribbean, a lot of different specialty work with deep water, mixed gas rebreather diving, archaeological work. We segued into robotics, which is what I do now, deep water robotics, which is the Lost 52 project, and we'll touch on that a little bit. But we'll be talking about a trip back across the Gulf Stream. And over here, there's about a 100-mile stretch between Havana and Key West, which we were coming into. I had a small crew of 5. And we were delivering the boat back across in some winter weather, and got caught by a cold front coming through. And we had some damage to the boat that we saved the boat, saved the people, and got her home.
So what are the climatic or tidal conditions that can actually make the Gulf Stream dangerous?
Well, the Gulf Stream is one of the super ocean currents. And it starts down south of Cuba in the Yucatan and rolls around right up through the Straits of Florida and hits you guys in the UK. It brings your weather is brought to you by the courtesy of the Gulf Stream's warm waters. So when you have a current and then you put wind against a current, you can build some pretty steep seas because you're pushing one against the other. When you're crossing it, the middle of that is basically 50 miles away from every port you're supposed to be at. So you're really in the middle of nowhere and hard to get to. And
this was in the middle of the night that you were attempting this crossing?
Yeah, we cross at the night. Usually it's easier, less traffic. It's just easier to travel at night. Tends to be. We had a watch on, but we were coming back from Havana to the Keys after an archaeological project with the European Institute of Archaeology.
You mentioned that there was a crew of 5 on board. So this was a relatively small boat. Can you kind of give me an idea of
we're not a big vessel. We're a 21, 22 meter boat. But we're customized. We're designed for diving, getting in shallow waters, getting in places like the Bahamas and coastal reef areas that boast big ships will be launching little tender boats. But we could sleep 14 people in 8 staterooms at the time. So it was customized to do this with compressors and mixed gas systems and rebreather support and all the full suite of electronics and we actually had internet back then.
So was this something that came about very suddenly, or were you aware, okay, we're going into quite choppy seas here? How quickly did it dawn on you that you might be in trouble?
Well, we had rough seas. We knew we were coming back. Moving backwards from the repair, it seemed that when this boat was manufactured, and I didn't build it, I bought it and I refurbished it and customized it from there. But it had like a cap, which is the top of the boat that's put onto the hull. And they built it like smaller boats, like they were building a 20 footer or a 6-8 meter vessel, and it didn't have the structural integrity at the bow section. So over the years it had been pushing like Tupperware, and like if you push Tupperware in, it popped the top off, and we caught some giant rogue sideways wave or a couple of them, and it popped the tops. Basically the whole top of the front end of the boat popped up like a Tupperware lid and dipped into the water and gulped in as much water as it could possibly eat, and filled 2 staterooms, 2 heads, and our firewall got it. We were like the Titanic. Our vessel was a Coast Guard certified passenger carrying vessel, so we had breakwater compartments that would stop it, and if it would have got to the next compartment, we wouldn't have made it. We would have been jumping in a raft. So.
Yeah, right. So I mean, things got very serious very quickly then. But by the sounds of things, it was a kind of just sudden, wave crashing, and as you say, this cap sort of popping off and taking on water. How does it work? Are you captaining this vessel?
Yeah, well, I'm captain in charge. I was captain, obviously owner. I just relieved. I had just been relieved from my watch, and my first mate took over and was running. Was running the helm. But at that situation, we knew it was rough, and the way the quarters were set up, I just laid in a bunk next to him. It was basically time to get to some sleep. I think I was off for 10 minutes when this all happened. Immediately, it jumped up, saw what was happening on the bow because the bow was moving, spun it into a following sea. We had a big sea, so I turned it in a following sea and started heading with the sea behind us, which could level us out and I could control it. Put someone at the wheel, ran down and checked and saw how much water was coming in or was in the boat, ran back up, immediately put people on life jacks, called a Mayday. Our Mayday was heard by a tugboat, I would say 10, 12 miles behind us, but they were moving at our speed or a little slower. So we had to head in a certain direction, and our direction was away from every place except for Mexico. We were going to go another 200, 300 miles to Mexico. That's the only land that we could get to, maybe. So we were in that following sea. So our choices became save the boat, abandon the boat, and then they would pick us up eventually because we would be floating and they'd find us in our raft. We have a big 25-man raft like you'd find on a cruise ship. It blows up in a big container. So those were our choices. Our pumps weren't working. obviously they were overwhelmed by that. And so the Mayday was called, they dispatched a helicopter from the Coast Guard station and a 41-footer, which took them several hours to get there. We wound up having them pitch us with a big water pump, 2-inch, they call them 2-inch water, gas powered pump. You'd see like firemen use, you fire it up and it'll pull out the water real fast. But in order to do that, you have a 41-foot boat or how many meters, 41 foot, 12 meters, maybe 11 meters, or maybe 14 meters, but trying to hand us a pump in the middle of 8 or 9 foot seas doesn't work that way. And the crew on that 41-footer are generally 18, 19, 20 years old with the experience level of being just trained and thrown on those boats. Maybe the commander's 25. So I wouldn't let them do it. So I wouldn't let them come near us. They tried to come and throw it on. They were going to sink us by coming near us. So we made them pitch us some lines and we hauled it aboard and put it to work. So that was our rescue. But then it took us 25 hours to get home. We couldn't go back into a sea. We'd just take on more water. We had to inch our way towards some islands and then turn around and come back. And it was a long trip home.
I bet. So take me through this moment then, and you're sort of at this crux of a decision whether to stay aboard or whether to abandon. What are you basing that on? Is this something that you've thought about in the past? Is there training that comes into play? What are the factors involved in terms of risk factors?
Well, this is my entire career, whether I'm working with robotics, which we are now, or we're working with divers down deep, or we're working with vessels that are carrying scientists and explorers on expeditions, is to game it out, okay? To think of what can go wrong and be 2 steps ahead of that. And try not to get there. Okay, our job is risk management. I mean, in the past we dealt with handling animals like sharks and feeding them for television shows, and scientists, and those are always managed situations. You just don't see them on TV the way you see them. So the same thing with the boats. You manage. If you take on water, what are we going to do? We do drills all the time. Okay, we practice what's going on. Obviously, in the heat of the moment. The reality and drills tend to have a little bit more adrenaline going, but the training is the training. And if you drill that in there, when something like this happens, you react and you make the proper steps. So people first, stabilize the situation, people first, and as far as decision making. So it was always, how do we get the 5 people safely in the water? That's the last thing you want to do if you have to, but it's quite evident if you do. So we were on a floating boat. It had taken on water and stabilized it going down sea. Raft was prepared in case we had to. Life jackets were issued. Mayday was on its way. We had it managed, and then we could take a breath and go, okay, we're not sinking. So what next? We wait for the pump, and then we took the pump, and everything took steps from there. But that's what you do. You game this out, and you get ready for things that can happen. And that's everything that we do, from deep diving to launching our robotics.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, was there once you decided to actually stay aboard and you were waiting for the pump, was there still a serious risk of the boat sinking, or had you kind of determined that, it would be able to stay afloat even with the water it was taking on?
It was hard to determine that. We knew that if we took more water on, we'd sink. Right, so it could, at any minute, we could be abandoning a boat. So we set up by radio. The tug would pick us up. The Coast Guard would then, still on their way, if they got there, they would pick us up. Excuse me. If we had to get in the raft, how we would do it. We had time to have that discussion once we stabilized the situation and we were running down sea. And then we had a little bit more time to evaluate if the pumps were working, which they weren't. I mean, a lot of garbage when you take your pillows and linens and then throw them down on the bilge, the pumps don't really handle those well. But I tell you what we did do is, after this incident, it took me 4 months to rebuild the bow of this boat. We built it like it was a tank. The Coast Guard basically said, you could and a structural engineer said we could hit a brick wall at 12 knots and it would break in the middle of the boat, not the bow. So we made an icebreaker out of a fiberglass boat. But I immediately equipped the boat with a 2-inch gas pump, put it up high, and we did regular drills on that. So we would have our own 2-inch pump if something happened, and we kept it above decks, way up high. So if obviously you don't want it below decks, and if you flood it out, you're taking on water and it's underwater, it's no good to you. And several years later, we had a stuffing box go, which is the shaft seals on our engine. And, it was a routine, throw the 2-inch pump in, solve the problem. And we learned our lesson. And that's the key element about this stuff. And that's what the ocean always teaches you. If you don't learn those lessons and apply them and add them to your base of knowledge, you're gonna have the same thing happen to you again someday. So.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound like, as you say, kind of, preparing for an eventuality, experiencing it, and then kind of double down again, and kind of prepare for it more, because unfortunately, lightning can strike twice, and
right.
Just because it's happened once, well, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen in 6 months' time as well.
Right, and teach that to your team. You got a crew that everybody on my boat knew how to drive it, knew how to work the systems, knew how to run that pump. We did drills on it, and that pump was a fire pump as well. We could assist other boats with a fire hose. So we had a lot of added capacity because of what we learned by having an event like the bow separation. So it was. Plus we learned how to handle fiberglass resin and constructing boats afterwards, because we spent 3 months or 4 months rebuilding that thing. So
and no string to your bow. So there you go. Fantastic. I mean, one last thing I wanted to ask you before we leave, but I talked about at the start, Lost 52, how it's such an important project in terms of bringing closure to the families of sailors who have been lost in submarines or at sea. Kind of aside from Lost 52, which of course we accept is very high on your list of priorities to find, what is the one thing that's out there that you don't know if it is able to be found, you don't know kind of where it is, but you would love before you retire one day to be able to find it? Is there anything like that for you?
Oh, there's a handful of items. Some I'll keep secret, but one of the ones that is in your neck of the woods is the Bonhomme Richard. So it's off of Flambeau Point. It was the first U.S. Boat in our Revolutionary War that had a battle with the French and was lost. A lot of people are looking for it. It's an old wreck that would be fascinating to find and be part of. But I tell you, the ability to go out and look for these things now, and the technology that we're employing and deploying is groundbreaking, because we're not doing the old way of towing long cables in the water. We're able to send autonomous robots down and scan so much of the area, and the oceans are getting smaller and smaller. There's a lot of mining and cable laying and things of that nature. So these antiquities, these men, these important sites are important to find and make people aware of. And we're honored to be part of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully, we hear about you at one point soon, discovering that, and of course the ones that are also you want to keep secret would be.
Yeah. There's
I'm sure there are many, because I'm sure it's a competitive business.
It tends to be. There's a lot of people out there with some kit and some money from industry, and looking for these things is important. We like to not. We're very careful not to disturb these. All our surveys are just that, non-invasive. So the grave sites, a lot of those places we're looking for, we're not treasure hunters. So we honor that and bring that back to the world. But the future, things like this have been raised. People preserving these for the families or for the posterity is important. So knowing where they are is the first step.
Absolutely. Tim, we will put your the details of Lost 52 in the description of this video, so people can find out more about that project. But where else should people go to learn about you and some of the work that you've been doing?
Well, Lost 52 is part of Ocean Outreach, which is our nonprofit, oceanoutreach.org. I think we raise money for outreach and education. So all the work we do on expeditions, we can turn into, 4D, augmented reality, educational products and outreach for families and schools and things of that nature. My business is Tiburon Subsea. That's Tiburon subsea.com, and that's underwater robotics. And lost52project.org is our direct site to the Lost 52 project, and I think you'll find a lot of interesting images and video. If you surf around there, a lot of the members of the crew and families, and just a lot of data in there that based on our work. A lot of video, I think people would enjoy.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. Tim, thank you so much for spending the time chatting with us this afternoon, or I suppose late morning for you.
Yeah.
And we will hopefully keep in touch in terms of what you're doing in the future, because I'm sure we'd be interested in featuring it.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Hopefully this COVID thing is over and done in the next months, a year, and everything's back to normal, and we get underway, and we have a lot more to report for you guys. So.
Great.
Right?
Lovely. Cheers, Tim.
All right, cheers.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So that's all we've got time for, unfortunately, for this episode. We're going to be back very soon with more fantastic guests from the world of adventure and exploration. So if you like this video, then please subscribe for notifications of when we release a new one. Of course, click that like button because it helps our rankings. But until then, bye-bye.